Good morning, 6th grade. Today we are taking a look at Chapter 8, Section 6, which is on perimeter. So we are on page 355. Go ahead and grab a highlighter here so I can work along with you. Okay, so do not be afraid to raise your hand if you need more time to take notes, or if you have any questions, we can pause the video for you. So just to start out though, to review perimeter. Perimeter is the distance around a geometric figure. So we're just going around the outside. I always like to remember it that perimeter, they always set up a perimeter around a crime scene using police tape. They both start with the letter P. So perimeter and police tape, that's around the outside of an object. And perimeter is always represented by a lowercase p. So again, the perimeter is the distance around a geometric figure. So you're thinking the outside edge of something, and perimeter is represented by the lowercase p. The perimeter of a polygon is equal to the sum of the lengths of its sides. So to review, polygon is just a fancy word for a closed figure or a shape. Remember that it's all straight lines. You could have 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and so on sides, but they are all going to be straight lines or straight line segments that form together and close to form a polygon. And it says the perimeter of a polygon is equal to the sum. Sum means add of the lengths of its sides. So we're just adding up all the lengths of the sides, and that gives us the perimeter. So example 1. Each morning, Stephanie jogs around the outside edge of the park shown. How far does she jog? So take a second, pause the video. I want you to try it. I know it's in your book, but try to ignore your book. Just pause it, give it a try, and then check with the person next to you. Everyone give Miss P a thumbs up so she can continue the video whenever you have your answer. Okay, so when we add up all the sides, I like to either highlight or check off each side as I'm adding it so that I remember that I have added it. So I have 100 plus 600 plus 500 plus 1,000 plus another 250. And that is going to give me a total of 2,450 meters all the way around the outside of the park. So skill check 1, go ahead and try each of these, and then check with the person next to you and let Miss P know whenever you're ready to move on. Okay, so whenever we take a look at this, we need to remember that when we have a figure that they only give us one side, or one of the two sides, like for instance this is 8, we know that the one across from it, this would also be 8. And this is 18, which means the top would also be 18 because this is the same length as the top, and this is the same length as the side. This is a rectangle, so we know that there's going to be 2 sides that are the same and 2 other sides that are the same, and they all have 90-degree angles. So we have 18 plus 18 plus 8 plus 8 for a total of 52 centimeters. So the next figure we have is a triangle. We have a side that's 6.8 meters by 12.7 meters by 11.3 meters. And all we have to do is add up those sides and you should get 30.8 meters. And then finally, we have a 5-sided polygon, which would be a pentagon. We have 18 meters plus 29 meters plus 15 meters plus 14 meters and plus 13 meters. And if I were you, again, I would go through whenever you're doing them and I would highlight each one. So we have 18, 29, 15, 14, and 30. When you add those all up, you get 106 meters. Again, whenever you're doing these, it's not going to hurt you at all to maybe put them in your calculator twice, or maybe add them up on your own and then check them in your calculator so that you're double checking your work to make sure that you are getting the correct answers. And then we have a couple formulas. This formula is for the perimeter of a square. Now, when you have a square, excuse my square, pretend it is a nice pretty looking square, we know that all the sides are the same. We have right angles and at each corner, and each side is the same. So for instance, if this was 3, we could do 3 plus 3 plus 3 plus 3 plus 3 4 times, so 3, 3, 3, and 3. Or it's easier if we just say, well, there's 4 sides, they are all the same, so we should just multiply 4 times 3. 4 times 3 would be 12. So they give us a formula which is pretty straightforward. It's exactly what we just said. You just take 4 times the side. So we just have to remember that P is our perimeter. This lowercase s stands for the length of our sides. We're multiplying it by 4 because a square has 4 equal sides. So example 2 says find the perimeter of the square. Well, they've already told us it's a square, so we know that all the sides are going to be equal, even though they only give us one of the sides. So if one of the sides is 4, that means we know all of the sides is 4. So we have P equals 4 times the length of one of our sides, which is 4. So we have P equals 4 times 4, which will just give us a perimeter of 16. Then we also have the perimeter of a rectangle. So there's a formula for that also. It says the perimeter of a rectangle is twice the length, or 2 times the length, plus twice the width, or 2 times the width. They write that out as P equals 2L plus 2W. That means 2 times L plus 2 times W. Remember, when we write this L, we usually write a cursive L, so you can tell that it's an L and not a number 1. So we should just remember that P stands for perimeter, L stands for the length, and W stands for the width. If we were to draw out a rectangle, it would make sense because there are 2 sides here that are the same, and these 2 sides here are the same. It does not matter if you call this the length and this the width, or if you call this the width and that the length, as long as you stay consistent whenever you're talking about these. So example 3 says find the perimeter of the rectangle. So we already know that if this is 3, then the opposite side has to be 3, and if this is 5, then the opposite side has to be 5. We could go around and say 5 plus 5 is 10, and 3 plus 3 is 16. Or we can use our perimeter formula, which is P equals 2 times the length plus 2 times the width. So we could let's call 3 the length. So we'll have 2 times 3 plus 2 times 5. And we need to remember our order of operations, which tells us we have to multiply these things together before we can add. So 2 times 3 is 6, plus 2 times 5 is 10, and 6 plus 10 is 16. Well, this might seem kind of simple at first, but we're going to get more in depth as we go on throughout your math careers this year, next year, and until you're done with math, with different ways to use the perimeter formula. So it's important to learn it now on numbers that we understand easily so that we can apply it later on. And then it says the perimeter of a regular polygon is the number of sides times the length of one side. So if you remember, a regular polygon means that all the sides are the same size and all the angles have the same measure. So when you have a regular polygon, you can multiply n, the number of sides, times s, the length of each side. This is similar to how we find the perimeter of a square. We have 4 sides, and then we use the length of each of one of those sides. In this case, we might have 6 sides or 10 sides, and we just multiply 10 times how long one of the sides is. So this makes our life a whole lot easier than having to add, if it's a 9-sided figure, adding all 9 sides together. We would just know that it's 9 times the length of each side. So I would probably label this in your notes that P stands for perimeter, N stands for the number of sides in a regular polygon, and S stands for the length of one side. Example 4 says, find the perimeter of a regular polygon with 17 sides, each having the length of 12 feet. So we're going to use that formula that we just learned. So we have P is equal to the number of sides times the length of each side. So we know that we have 17 sides times the length of each side, or the length of one of the sides, which is 12. So we're going to take 17 times 12. So you can punch this in the calculator. And you should get 204 feet. Alright, so skill check 2 says find each perimeter. So I want you to go ahead and pause the video, try these out, check with a partner, and then let Miss P know whenever you're ready for the answers.